God breaks the man he wants to use. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a mystery at the heart of every soul's journey, a secret known not by the comfortable but by the crushed, a truth hidden from the eyes of the proud, yet revealed in the tears of those who have been brought to their knees. It is this: God breaks the man he wants to use, not in cruelty but in mercy, not to destroy but to reveal, not to punish but to prepare. For how can a vessel carry the fire of heaven unless it has first been emptied of the self? How can light fill the room unless something in us shatters wide open? My friends, the breaking is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the moment when illusion collapses and the real man stands up from the ashes of who he used to be. You see, we are not chosen because we are strong, we are chosen because we are willing to be made strong through surrender. We are not used by God in the comfort of pride, we are used by God through the fire of transformation. So if you have been broken, if life has shattered your confidence, stripped your plans, crushed your ego, then take heart. You are not forgotten, you are being formed, you are not being buried, you are being planted. And when God is finished with the breaking, what rises will no longer be a man limited by fear or doubt, but a man shaped by fire, filled with vision and ready to walk in power. Tonight, we speak not of destruction, but of divine construction. Let us begin. Suffering is the alchemy of awakening. We speak so often of purpose, of calling, of destiny, and yet we rarely recognize the doorway through which these gifts arrive. That doorway is suffering. Not random suffering, not chaos for its own sake, but sacred, intentional, alchemical pain. It is the furnace where illusion is burned and truth is refined. There is no awakening without the ache. There is no divine purpose without divine undoing. The man God chooses is not chosen because of his talents, his charm, or his outward strength. He is chosen because he can endure the shattering that transforms, because he can be emptied completely and still whisper, "Yes, you see, suffering is not the enemy. It is the sculptor. It chisels away the stone of pride, the marble of control, the hardened clay of self, will. And as these layers fall, what is revealed is not a weaker man but a truer one. Have you not noticed? In the hour of trial, when everything you depended on vanishes, when reputation is stripped, plans dissolve, relationships unravel, something strange begins to stir. A voice from within, one that was long silent under the noise of your ambition, begins to speak. Soft at first, then louder, then undeniable. That voice is not the voice of defeat. It is the voice of origin, of the one who knew you before form and time, and the breaking you feared becomes the very womb of rebirth. It is here, in the silence of your suffering, that the greatest awakening takes place, the discovery that who you are is not what you've lost. Let us be clear, the breaking is not a curse, it is a coded invitation. Every loss, every betrayal, every disappointment is a holy cipher meant to guide you back to what is real, what is eternal, what cannot be taken. This is not poetic metaphor, this is spiritual law. You are not being punished. You are being peeled open. The world will tell you to avoid pain at all costs, but heaven whispers another truth. The pain you avoid is the path you need, for it is only through the wound that light enters. Only through collapse that resurrection can be born. What dies in suffering is not the man, it is the mask. And oh, what glory there is in that unveiling. When the man finally stands without the mask, without the armor, without the false scaffolding, when he has nothing left but the breath in his lungs and the fire in his spirit, it is then that heaven smiles. Because now, finally, God has a man who can be used, for the proud cannot carry the torch. The unbroken cannot bear the weight of glory, but the man who has been broken, who has wrestled in the dark night of his soul and emerged not with answers, but with surrender, that is the man who changes the world, quietly, boldly, eternally. So let the suffering come if it must. Let the breaking have its way if it will. Do not resist it, recognize it, for you are not being abandoned, you are being awakened. And when the breaking is done and your soul has shed the last of its illusions, you will not rise as you were. You will rise as you truly are. Imagination, the furnace of rebirth. And once the man is broken, once he has been stripped of all outer scaffolding, something sacred happens. Not on the outside, but within. For in the silence that follows suffering, the man is led into the most powerful sanctuary he will ever enter, his own imagination. There, behind the veil of flesh and noise, lies the workshop of God. And it is not made of stone, it is not built in temples or tabernacles, it is woven into the mind of man, that secret chamber where thought becomes form, and form gives birth to reality. When all else is taken from a man, his imagination remains. It is there, in the darkness, that he is invited to co-create with the divine, not with tools of the world, but with the vision of the unseen, with the boldness to believe in what is not yet visible, and the faith to walk as though it were. The world would call this madness, but heaven calls it alignment. This inner vision, this sacred imagining, is not mere fantasy. It is the womb of transformation. In the hour of breaking, the imagination does not merely survive, it awakens. And in that awakening, the man discovers something terrifying and beautiful, that he was never powerless. He had simply forgotten where power truly lies. In the stillness of pain, he begins to see not with eyes, but with spirit. He sees the self reborn, not according to the past, but according to the promise, not shaped by memory, but molded by inner revelation. It is here that destiny is not just remembered, it is rewritten. What the outer world calls delay, the inner world calls preparation. What the world calls defeat, the inner vision calls redirection. The imagination becomes the furnace in which the new man is forged, not in a single flash of lightning, but through the slow and sacred process of believing again. It is no accident that the men most powerfully used by the divine are those who have walked through valleys alone, because it is in the silence where the noise of the world is gone that they begin to see again, not with their natural eyes, but with the eye of spirit, and that sight is creation. For every man must choose, will he let the breaking define him, or will he step into the inner fire and allow the vision to refine him? The choice is not made with the lips, but with the mind, with the imagination. You see, the broken man has two paths before him. One leads back to bitterness, where he gathers the fragments of what was and tries to rebuild a version of his past. But the other path, the sacred one, leads into the furnace, where he dares to dream anew, where he closes his eyes to the ruins around him, and dares to behold a temple rising from the ashes. And that temple is not made by human hands. It is built by thought, belief, faith. It is constructed first in the unseen, long before the earth ever mirrors it. So if you find yourself in the valley, with nothing left to hold, reach inward, enter the sanctuary. Close your eyes to the storm, and open them to the inner kingdom, for it is there that you will find the fire, and not the fire that destroys the fire that creates. Let the vision burn bright. Let the imagination speak. For in that sacred furnace the man who was broken begins to rise, not as he was, but as he was always meant to be. The shattering is the summons, and now let us speak plainly of the moment itself, that sacred collapse, that holy fracture when everything you clung to fails you. When the outer world falls silent and the inner world screams awake, this is not a misfortune, this is a summons, for the shattering is not random, it is not meaningless, it is not the chaotic accident of a cruel universe. It is a divine signal, sounding from the depths of your being, echoing with one message. It is time. Time for what? Time to awaken, time to rise, time to cast off every lie you've believed about who you are, and step into the great unveiling of who you've always been beneath the surface. The breaking does not come to end you, it comes to call you. You see, no man ever walks into his divine assignment with a full cup. The chosen are not called in moments of comfort, they are summoned in moments of emptiness. It is only when all is lost that the voice can finally be heard, because the call is not external. It does not arrive in thunder or trumpet. It speaks from within, in the ruins, and you do not hear it until the noise of your ego has been silenced. The voice that calls you forward is not new, it has always been there, but until you were shattered you could not listen, and so the great unraveling comes, not to ruin you but to unmask you, to tear away the layers you used to protect the false self. The roles, the routines, the identities you performed, and when they fall as they must, you are left standing naked before the truth that you are not who you thought you were, you are far more, but only the shattered man can carry this kind of truth. Only he is light enough to lift the mantle of purpose. We resist the breaking because we fear the unknown. We clutch what is familiar even when it suffocates us, because we are terrified of who we might become if we let go. But the breaking is the mercy of heaven tearing away the veil, and when it does, your true self is not created, it is revealed. And what a revelation it is, that the power was never outside you, that the voice you longed to hear was speaking all along. That the assignment on your life did not begin after the shattering, it was birthed through it. The moment you were broken was the moment you were called, not in the language of the world, but in the silence of the soul. And once you've heard that Cole truly heard it, you cannot return to what you were, because now you know the pain was a doorway, the loss was a passage, the collapse was an invitation to come higher, go deeper, live truer. So do not curse the shattering, do not rush to fix it, or hide it, or explain it. Sit with it, listen to it, let it speak to you, let it pull you inward into the stillness where you no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but instead whisper, "What is this calling me to become?" That is the sacred shift. That is the birth of destiny. You were not broken to be discarded. You were broken to be awakened. And the call that rises from the ruins is not for the man you were, it is for the man you are becoming. Divine use demands divine reforming by now. You have begun to understand the breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of reformation, and not the reformation of circumstances, not the rearranging of external life, but the reformation of the man himself. For God does not use a man he has not first reformed, and divine use always demands divine remaking. We tend to imagine that usefulness is about strength, about skills, intellect, charisma, status. But the truth is far more mystical, far more dangerous, and far more sacred. Divine usefulness has nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with alignment. And alignment only comes after a great internal disassembly, a return to the blueprint written before time began. You cannot be used until you've been unmade, not destroyed, but dissolved, melted down in the crucible of suffering and silence, refined in the fires of humility and vision. Every fragment of the false self, the one formed by fear, by performance, by cultural expectation, must be stripped away. What remains is not less than what you were. It is only what is true. Do you not see? The breaking was not about what God was doing to you, but about what he was awakening within you. And now the man who has come through the shattering, who has listened to the silence, who has re-entered the holy sanctuary of imagination, must now be reformed, not by effort, not by force, but by surrender. This is where most men turn back, because we are taught to fix, to fight, to forge ahead, but this sacred work does not respond to force. The old man was built through effort, the new man is born through stillness. The divine does not reform through chaos, it reforms through revelation, and this reformation always begins where the old man ends, in the ashes, for ashes are not death. They are proof that something unworthy of your calling has finally burned away. From those ashes the spirit begins to move, gently, quietly, not rebuilding but reimagining, not reattaching the old but calling forth the original. You are not being made into someone new, you are being returned to someone eternal. This is the reforming, the reintroduction of your being to its source, and the man who emerges from this process no longer walks in reaction, he walks in revelation. He no longer strives to prove himself, he simply is himself. And because of that, heaven can now entrust him with authority. Let that truth settle in you. Heaven only trusts the man who no longer needs to be seen, for that man no longer seeks validation from the crowd. His eyes are fixed inward, upward, and onward. He does not lead from ego, but from essence. He does not build from ambition, but from alignment. And it is in this alignment that divine power begins to flow, not because he is trying to be powerful, but because he is simply available. Available to the moment, available to the whisper, available to be used in ways he may never fully understand. Do you now see the difference between being useful in the world and being usable by heaven? The world seeks to polish, heaven seeks to purify, the world asks for talent, heaven asks for truth, the world wants performers, heaven wants vessels, and the vessel must be empty before it can be filled. That is the law. You cannot pour living water into a cup already full of self. So God empties it lovingly, painfully, completely. and once empty, he reshapes it according to a higher pattern. This reshaping does not always look glorious. Often it looks quiet, hidden, even disappointing by worldly standards, but that is because heaven's work is done in secret until it is time to reveal. Think of the seed in the soil. The world sees nothing. Just a shell buried in the dark, but beneath the surface a miracle is unfolding. The shell breaks, the form is lost, the structure collapses, but only through that process does life begin. So it is with the man being reformed. Outwardly, he may appear diminished, less certain, less known, less praised, but inwardly, oh, inwardly he is expanding, deepening, aligning with something eternal. And when the roots grow deep enough, the tree must rise. Reformation is not about returning to where you were. It is about becoming what you were always meant to be before the world named you, before the wounds shaped you, before fear tried to own you. And when that new man steps forward not with noise, but with quiet authority, creation responds. Not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. This is what it means to be reformed, to become the living expression of heaven's intention, to walk not just with words, but with presence, to carry power not in your hands, but in your spirit. And that kind of man, the reformed man, becomes a gateway. People encounter him and do not know why they are moved, why they feel peace, why they feel conviction. It is because something in him has returned to its source. And anything that touches the source becomes transformative. So do not resist the reformation. Do not rush the process. Let it do its sacred work. You are not being delayed, you are being redesigned. Not into someone acceptable by the world, but into someone irresistible to purpose. This is the cost of divine use. This is the price of becoming. You cannot carry glory in a vessel still bound to old form. And so the form must break. The self must yield, the ego must bow, but oh, what rises in its place is worthy. It is true, it is light, it is free, so let the reforming happen. Let the fire do its holy work. Let the silence carve out new space within you, because when heaven finishes its shaping, you will not just carry purpose, you will become purpose in motion, and when you walk, the ground itself will remember who you are. Resurrection follows death, always and now. The final truth must be spoken, not whispered, but declared. Resurrection is not a question. It is a law. It follows death as surely as dawn follows night, as surely as spring follows winter. Not one man in history has been broken, emptied, and reformed by the hand of the divine who has not also risen, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but truly risen in life, in purpose, in power. Yet before resurrection there must be a tomb, not a metaphorical one, a real one, a place where the old man dies, a chamber where no light seems to enter, where silence reigns, and where the illusion of finality whispers its lie, it's over. But it is not over. The tomb is not the end. The tomb is the transition, because what dies is not you. It is the former you, the fearful self, the striving self, the self addicted to validation, performance, and identity. That self cannot walk into destiny. It must be left behind, and so it dies. This is why the path to being used by God always leads through crucifixion, not on a cross of wood, but on a cross of surrender, where you let every version of yourself that was never real be nailed down, so that what is eternal can rise. But this death, this burial, this moment in the grave, it does something profound. It removes your need to return to what was. Once you've died, you no longer fear death. Once you've been buried, you no longer grasp for survival. And once you've risen, truly risen, you no longer beg for permission to live, because resurrection makes you fearless. It makes you whole, it makes you true, but the resurrection does not come because you earned it. It comes because it was written, because it is your birthright. And no man who has yielded to the full breaking, the full reformation, the full surrender, can be denied the rising. It will come, not always in the form you expect, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but it will come. For just as the seed must die before it breaks the soil, just as the moon must vanish before it waxes again, just as every night must bow to the sun, so too must your death give way to your rising. This is the law. You may not see it while in the tomb. You may feel forgotten, discarded, left behind, but the tomb is not abandonment, it is incubation. It is the dark womb of the Spirit preparing to birth something that has never walked the earth before you, remade in the fire of divine purpose. So do not curse the grave, do not fear the stillness, do not flee the silence. It is in this moment when you are hidden from the world that heaven is finishing its masterpiece. When you rise, you will not rise alone. You will rise with clarity, you will rise with authority, you will rise with a quiet knowing that no man gave to you and no man can take from you, because resurrection gives you back yourself, not the self shaped by survival, but the self called before time. And that self, once awakened, cannot return to the tomb. He does not belong there. His voice changes rooms. His presence shifts atmospheres. His existence itself becomes a message. There is life after death. And that message is not just for you, it is for the world. You do not rise for applause. You rise to become a sign, a living letter, a walking reminder that heaven still breathes through broken men, still raises the ones who said yes in the grave. People will look at you and not recognize you. They will say, "Is this not the same man who was buried beneath failure, pain, obscurity?" And you will smile not from pride, but from knowing, because the man they buried is not the man who walks now. The man who walks now has no chains left. He is not ruled by fear. He is not moved by opinion. He does not beg to be chosen. He knows that he is chosen. He walks not because of what he has, but because of who he has become. This is resurrection, not just a return or rebirth. And once you rise, you become dangerous to darkness, because you are no longer bound by the old world's rules. You are no longer afraid to lose. You have already lost everything that wasn't real, and you survived. No, you did not survive. You transformed, and now every step you take is sacred. Every word you speak carries weight. Every room you enter feels the echo of your journey, not because you announce it, but because your presence proves it. Resurrection is not about noise, it is about presence. It is not about shouting your victory, it is about carrying the stillness that can only come from having died and lived again. And now the world is no longer your master. It becomes your field, your canvas, your assignment, because resurrection does not make you escape earth, it sends you back into it with fire in your bones and light in your eyes. You have no need to strive now. You have become the message. You have no need to preach now. You are the sermon. You do not chase doors any more. You are the key. This is the reward of the man who is broken, reformed, and risen. Not that he is elevated, but that he is awakened. He knows now that nothing was wasted, not a single tear, not a single loss, not a single night in the tomb. Everything was preparation for this, to be used not just by God, but as God's expression in the earth. Not as deity, but as vessel, not for control, but for transformation. You are not who you were, you are not what they said, you are not what you lost, you are what rose. So walk with stillness. Walk with authority, walk with grace, because when God breaks the man he wants to use, he does not leave him broken, he raises him in power, he clothes him in truth, he sends him out not to echo the world, but to transform it silently, steadily, with every step.